Japan suffered a miserable defeat in World War II. Post-World War, Japan was in shambles and their economy had collapsed. Due to the two atomic bombs, cities were reduced to rubbles and the whole world was in shock. Due to resilience and support from the US, Japan was quickly able to bounce back. Japan not just achieved very high growth rate but also soon became world's second largest economy. Japanese companies and their innovation, both technological and business processes, became the benchmark for the entire world. Japan continued to grow till late 1980s, but then the asset bubble burst. Post that, Japan has tried multiple things to bounce back, but challenges, both economic and demographic, were too strong to be overcome. Even the zero interest rate policy couldn't revive the growth. And today, even after 3 decades, Japan's economy has remained stagnated. From world's second largest economy, now Japan has dropped to 4th largest economy after the US, China and Germany. Lately there have been signs of revival. Will Japan be able to reverse the trend and go to the growth trajectory that they once had? Let's deep dive and find out. By the early 20th century, Japan had transformed its economy to be one of the most advanced in Asia. By 20th century, Japan had won many wars. Japan's victory over China established Japan as a military power in East Asia. Japan also became first Asian nation to defeat a European power, when Japan defeated Russia in 1905. These wins gave Japan the confidence and desire to become a global superpower. Japan entered World War II with the same aspirations. By 1941, Japan had aligned with Germany and Italy in the Axis powers. The attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, which Japan launched to preemptively weaken the United States Pacific Fleet, brought America into the war. From 1942 to 1945, the United States and its allies launched a series of campaigns that chipped away at Japanese defenses and footholds throughout the Pacific. As Japan continued to resist surrender despite mounting losses, the United States, seeking to avoid a costly invasion, made the decision to use atomic weapons. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender, bringing an end to World War II. The bombing raids and atomic attacks decimated Japan's infrastructure, leaving cities in ruins. By the end of the war, Japan had lost approximately 2.5 million soldiers and civilians, with millions more injured or permanently disabled. Lot of sanctions were imposed on Japan. Japan's military was completely dismantled, and all military institutions were abolished. Industries involved in the production of weapons and military equipment were either shut down or converted to civilian industries. Japanese exports were limited, with control exercised by the Allied authorities. Many Japanese assets overseas were confiscated, and properties of wealthy war-era industrialists were redistributed or nationalized. Before World War II, Japan was experiencing significant industrial growth. By 1940, Japan's per capita income reached about 41% of the United States per capita income at that time. This was a remarkable increase from just 30% in 1870. The end of World War II in 1945 left Japan's economy in ruins. Infrastructure was devastated, and the country faced severe shortages of food and materials. In 1946, industrial production plummeted to just 28% of pre-war levels. The economy struggled under Allied occupation but began to stabilize due to reforms and aid from the United States. United States recognized Japan as an important ally in the context of Cold War geopolitics. US provided extensive support through economic aid and military protection. Between 1945 and 1952, the US channeled over $2 billion in aid to Japan. One of the foundational pillars of Japan's success was its workforce, which was highly educated, disciplined, and committed to growth. The Japanese government recognized this as a valuable asset, developing policies that prioritized economic recovery, educational reform, and investment in science and technology. These combined efforts of domestic policy and international support enabled Japan to re-industrialize and reach technological parity with the West by the late 1960s. By the 1970s, Japan's economy was the second largest in the world. Japan dominated across multiple industries. Japan's innovation in consumer electronics positioned it at the global forefront. Companies like Sony, Panasonic, and Toshiba became household names worldwide, transforming the way people interacted with technology. If you are finding this video interesting, then please subscribe to the channel. Japan's automobile industry is a hallmark of its rapid industrial ascent. By the 1980s, Japanese automakers had established a stronghold in North American and European markets, redefining global standards in automotive engineering and production. Japan's contributions to quality standards, innovation, and production efficiency influenced global industries, prompting other countries to adopt similar practices. The country's rise reshaped global economic dynamics, especially in Asia, inspiring nations like South Korea and China to emulate its economic model. During the 1980s, Japan's GDP grew at an unprecedented rate, making it the second largest economy in the world by 1978. By 1989, Japan's GDP reached approximately $3.1 trillion and Japan's economy had grown sixfold since the 1960s. As Japan's overall GDP surged, the wealth of its citizens rose to unprecedented levels. In the late 1980s, Japan's GDP per capita ranked third globally, after Luxembourg and Switzerland, marking Japan's population as one of the wealthiest. The Nikkei stock index, which reflects Japan's economic strength, soared during this time, peaking at an all-time high of 39,000 in December 1989. During the bubble era, Japanese banks were liberal in their lending practices, often extending credit without considering the inherent risks. The Bank of Japan's decision to keep interest rates low further fueled this. As a result, asset prices soared, and speculation became rampant. When the Bank of Japan began to raise interest rates, in an attempt to curb inflation, it triggered the start of an inevitable downturn. This rate hike made borrowing more expensive and triggered a sharp decline in both real estate and stock prices. The Nikkei 225 index, which had reached an all-time high of nearly 39,000 in 1989, dropped by more than half within a few years. Many banks were left holding vast amounts of bad debt from loans issued during the bubble years, forcing the government to step in with bailouts and restructuring efforts. The Japanese government tried a range of strategies to stimulate growth, including significant fiscal stimulus packages, but the economic malaise continued. Deflation became a persistent problem, as declining prices discouraged spending and investment. For over 2 decades, Japan's economy saw negligible growth, failing to reclaim the high growth rates of the pre-bubble years. In 1999, Japan's central bank, the Bank of Japan, introduced the zero-interest rate policy as a drastic attempt to stimulate the economy. With lower borrowing costs, companies were expected to expand, invest in new technologies, and ultimately drive economic growth. This policy alone was insufficient to counteract the deflationary pressure, making it hard to boost demand. Zero-interest rate policy made borrowing easy, which resulted into investment in overseas companies. With domestic interest rates at or below zero, Japanese investors sought higher yields in foreign markets. This led to significant investments in U.S. treasuries, European equities, and Asian markets. Countries receiving Japanese investments have experienced boosts in economic growth due to increased capital inflows. For instance, Japan's investments in Southeast Asia have been crucial for infrastructure projects that enhance regional connectivity and economic integration. Japan, from the second largest economy, has dropped to 4th position now after US, China and Germany. Japan is facing a unique and pressing demographic challenge due to a persistently low birth rate and an aging population. It has a birth rate of only 1.34 children per woman, which is far below the replacement rate of 2.1. Japan has the highest public debt to GDP ratio among advanced economies, at around 250%. The high debt levels are a consequence of decades of economic stimulus packages and welfare programs aimed at supporting the aging population, which leave the government with fewer options to manage economic downturns. Although Japan is known for its technological advancements, some sectors, particularly manufacturing, are facing global competition and reduced output. Addressing productivity, especially in the service sector, will be essential to revitalize growth. Lately there are good signs of recovery of Japan's economy. Second quarter of 2024 had an annualized growth of 2.9%, rebounding from a contraction earlier in the year. The Nikkei 225 stock market index for the Tokyo Stock Exchange has been in a state of stagnation for much of the past 3 decades. In 2023 and into 2024, Japan's stock market has shown signs of recovery. As of early October 2024, the Nikkei 225 has surged significantly, reflecting a broader optimism in the market. Since the beginning of 2024, the Nikkei has increased by approximately 16%, reaching an all-time high of 42,400 in July. Japan's economic recovery and global competitiveness will depend on its ability to adapt to changing global dynamics. While Japan's aging population is a persistent challenge, the country's proactive approach to technology adoption offers a significant advantage. Japan's businesses, government, and society must work together to maximize the benefits of AI and automation, creating a labor force that complements rather than competes with these technological advances. Moving away from a heavy reliance on manufacturing and automotive industries, Japan can seek growth in alternative sectors such as renewable energy, biotechnology, and fintech. Embracing a broader economic strategy will allow Japan to insulate itself from future global disruptions. Much of Japan's economic activity is concentrated in urban centers like Tokyo and Osaka, leaving rural areas underdeveloped and aging. Policies that encourage business investments and infrastructural improvements in rural regions can help to stimulate local economies, making rural Japan an attractive alternative for both businesses and citizens. For more such geopolitical and global case studies, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon. Now you know more about the current topic, please watch the next video to know more on Apple, how it rose from bankruptcy to a money minting machine.